Mike Sempervive here with you for the next hour talking about professional wrestling, which is something we do every single day here on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Tune in, iHeart, American Forces Radio, Cable Radio Network 2, sportsbyline.com, over-the-air affiliates, podcasting, or maybe you're video streaming on Twitch or YouTube. However you're joining us today, I'd just like to say thank you. Hopefully wherever you are, it's sunny outside. If not, hopefully it's sunny inside your mind. Beautiful sunny day here on my portion of Delmarva, which is about 2,200 miles away from our new affiliate, 1550 SLC Sports Radio in Salt Lake City and throughout the Salt Lake Valley. Shout out to Program Director Dino Costa. We'll be with you 7 days a week on 1550 SLC Sports Radio. A little closer to Salt Lake than I am is Filthy Tom Lawler, who's in Las Vegas, and he's still cleaning up after all you darn kids came to town and messed the place up. He's here today because Bryan Alvarez is out, as he told you on yesterday's show. He'll be back tomorrow for Fun Friday. But no matter who is in this chair, there's always something to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. Last night was AEW Dynamite, which I thought was a pretty good pro wrestling show. And more than that, I think if you're an AEW fan, you were probably thrilled with it. A lot of things move forward. You got a big cluster with a lot of stars in it to open up the show. You got your Young Bucks match with them being back. I think it was the first time on TV since October. So the show didn't drag. That was the most important thing to me. And there were some entertaining segments like MJF and the Hurt Business. I'm giving all of the credit to Master P. Shout out to Percy Miller. Tonight is TNA Impact, which leads into Sunday's big Rebellion show at the 10,000-seat Galen Center. I'm not sure exactly how much they have opened up for this show, but we'll take a look at what they have planned for tonight. We also have the ratings for Tuesday night's NXT show, which is making the CWs very, very happy, as well as news on AEW adding another 4-hour block of programming live to their schedule. All of that and much more when we get back from break. Wrestling Observer Live. Welcome back to the show. Mike Sempervive here with you. Jim Valley joins you on Saturdays beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and Andrew Zarian will be with you on Sunday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time through all of the same ways you're listening to me right now, including the official home of NASCAR in Salt Lake. Had to break out, even though, you can't see it on the radio, the throwback Sterling Marlin Sunoco 94 hat. Yes, I did. 1550 AM SLC Sports Radio throughout the Salt Lake Valley. Not just Observer Live, but many of the other shows here on Sports Byline USA. And we thank Dino Costa for letting us be a part of the SLC community. I'd also love it if you made the wrestling news part of your day. You can find it wherever you find your favorite podcasts on YouTube, thewrestlingnews.com, and at Wrestling News AV on X and Facebook every single day of the year. Everything you need to know to get your day started, get you up to date, or get you to your favorite long-form review pod like Wrestling Observer Radio. And a new edition is up right now for subscribers with Dave and Brian talking about AEW Dynamite, NXT, The Rock, all sorts of other things. Filthy. Do you need The Rock in your life now at this current stage of WWE with everything they have going on? I don't.
Brother, let me tell you. The Rock, fantastic. Undeniably one of the best pro wrestlers in history. One of the biggest stars that we've actually ever had in this entire country, in the history of this nation. He's up there with George Washington, Johnny Appleseed, Gary Albright. But listen, I had enough of The Rock once I heard him on Tech Nine's Face Off. He does a verse at the end of the song, and then he goes, one take. And I'm like, listen, Dwayne, you sat down and you rapped that verse in one take. You didn't even do a second take because you're like, I can make this one sound better. It was one take. I don't know. A little too much Terramana for my liking. But if there was ever a time to have The Rock, WrestleMania would have been the time to do it, right?
I would think. I thought he was going to be there.
Waiting.
Yeah. Apparently everybody was, and people called him out for it. One person was Dave LaGreca on Busted Open Radio, who had a big old rant about it on Monday on his show, about him not being involved, Dwayne, that is, in the John Cena-Cody Rhodes main event. And apparently Rock heard that or was, given that information. And on the Instagram, on his Instagram, he said to Dave LaGreca, the business is a complete work, always has, always will be, every aspect of it, every match, every interview. He then invited LaGreca to join himself, Cody Rhodes, John Cena, and Brian Gerwitz, and the rest of us for their creative discussions so he can expand his perspective. But until then, stop ranting. It's not healthy, my friend. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the ride that The Rock is taking you on, or maybe not taking you on. He was on Pat McAfee's show on Monday saying that it was his call not to be involved in the Cena Rhodes finish or the post-elimination chamber build, as he wanted the spotlight on Cena and Rhodes. He said he liked how things were done, but he would have adjusted and finessed some things, which, of course, people took as a shot towards Paul Levesque. And last night on Observer Radio, Dave and Brian talked about this story, and Brian, very exasperatedly, if that's a word,
he pontificated.
He did, and he mirrored many of my thoughts, some of which we talked about on yesterday's show when it came to The Rock and people thinking that he was going to be involved in all of this and Travis Scott would not be the boss we had to deal with. We thought we were getting the final boss. Now, I can understand not ranting about this. I mean, honestly, it is pro wrestling. It's really not that important, but a lot of people wanted The Rock to be there. A lot of people thought he was going to be there, and he's the guy that inserted himself. So, I mean, what's he upset about? What could he be upset about?
I don't know. Are you fiending for some more Travis Scott?
No.
I'd rather have The Rock out there than Travis Scott, I'll tell you that much.
But and the thing with me is and this is nothing against The Rock character. It's nothing against Dwayne Johnson, the person. It's just that they have so many people right now. And we talked about the glut of people on Mania, that they had so many three-person, triple threats and this and that. And there were still people left off the card where it's like, we didn't really need The Rock to be inserted into anything. We don't need him. We didn't need him at NXT showing up I'm not saying he was drunk, but feeling really good, just taking over NXT and cutting a promo to the crowd that went nowhere, and most of it was bleeped anyway. Granted, he got a great rating and all that sort of stuff, but it's like, okay, Rock's here. Like, I don't know if I need that when they have so many other things going on. The specter of The Rock just poking his head in because, well, he can, because he's on the board.
I mean, based on what I've heard on audio clips, perhaps The Rock should have made an appearance at the roast of WrestleMania. Perhaps they could have used him over there if you smell what The Rock's cooking. I mean,
I didn't dip my toe into that pool. I didn't want to, just because I saw a little of the discourse about the fact that it got out there, and it was like, no good is going to come from this it'd
be like dipping your toe into the water in Flint, Michigan.
Let's see.
Or maybe in the Ganges River.
I don't think that that Dean Martin was probably, if anything, he was rolling over in his grave. Charlotte Flair, I guess, came out and said, I was wondering why this was a headline on the front page of the site. This was good clickbait for me. It just said, Charlotte Flair, IDK, I'll just wrestle. Or I'm paraphrasing there. So I'm like, what the hell is this? So I click it open, and apparently Nia Jax and I guess other people cracks about Flair's multiple plastic surgeries, cracks about her relationship, and it's like, so one thing about roasts is that I thought was, like, it's usually, like, lighten up the person that's there. They kind of signed up to be a part of the deal or is in the crowd, where it's like, you go to, like, I'm sure you've been to stand-up comedy shows, Tom. Like, if you sit in the front, you're a target. You're probably going to get called out by somebody. So it's like, you kind of accept that, going to a roast. But I don't know. Anything that you heard on that is, worth noting, or anything that what you thought from the little bit that you heard?
Honestly, the most offensive thing to me was the lack of humor in the jokes. They had time to prepare, and these are the jokes that they came up with. A lot of them just weren't even offensive. They were just not funny. You know what I mean? I've watched plenty of roasts. I am I would say a connoisseur.
You're a master roast master. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not the roast master general. No. However, it appears to me that, like, no wrestling fans ever watched, I don't know, Anthony Jeselnik do stand-up because a lot of people are severely offended by the content. And like I said, almost anything goes in roasts. But in this one, apparently everything went except for humor.
The Friars Club roast.
Why am I?
Apparently somebody really is upset
calling me
with
out.
Your take on roast. Yeah, really. Was that Hinchcliffe on the phone? Is he Vegas based? But that's true, and that's one thing people, when oh my God, I can't believe this was said at a roast. Like, that's the reason that the Friars Club roasts, yes, they were public ones, but they were by comedians for comedians behind closed doors, and they weren't made out to the public. Now, when it comes to some of the public roasts back in the day, it seemed to be that, yes, like Don Rickles would light you up. He'd say all sorts of offensive and mean things, but it wasn't, and some things were mean, but they weren't mean-spirited. And over time, Jeffrey Ross, I think, is amazing at the balance he is able to pull off. But even some of those roasts that were big on Comedy Central, that kind of, to me, started some of that decline of, like, if you just say the meanest thing possible that gets the biggest pop or the biggest shock, like, that replaces the humor. And it's like, I don't know, Jeffrey Ross with the one-liner of, like,
you sound like an old worker telling guys to slow down.
I guess so, but
do
like,
less.
Me, there's got to have some comedy. Like when Jeffrey Ross told whoever it was at that roast, I wouldn't do you
song.
with B. Arthur's, it would have been great.
Go to break.
No. Wrestling Observer Live. Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawler, Wrestling Observer Live. What do you think, folks? One take? Think you took The Rock only one take for that? Tom?
I wish I had a Tech 9 here to blow my own face off. I can't handle listen to that song again. I don't believe him. I'm sorry.
Poor Rock. See, now The Rock was who called earlier, by the way? Was that The Rock? Was he in Vegas? Nick Khan still in Vegas calling you out?
I think they've already done their damage. TKO took me out a long time ago.
The 4-hour block. Oh, by the way, any word from Royce? Did he enjoy his little shot on NXT?
NXT.
Yeah, they played.
Oh yeah, I guess he did have a little debut video there. I don't know. I haven't heard from him since I got him out of here. But I know he took a flight, and then I looked on the news and I saw that there was a flight that not too long ago, like the bathrooms failed midair, and they had to ground the flight. So I'm not sure if that's related or not. I don't know if he was flying Air India or what the deal was, but. No word from him. Thank God.
Well, about 686,000 people, possibly, maybe, on average, had a chance to see him on NXT. That's up 3.5% from the previous week. Best audience for the show since March 25th. I don't think any surprise there coming out of Stand and Deliver in WrestleMania. In the 18 to 49-year-old demo, NXT drew a 1.7 rating. That's up 21.4% from last week and ties the highest rating for the show in that category since the February 25th episode. NXT finished 7th amongst the 12th shows on English language broadcast networks for the night. I love how they don't add Univision or Galavision just because it's just going to beat down everything even more. But NXT did beat everything on Fox and most shows on NBC.
What's on those stations? Like, what's on Univision and Galavision at those times? The weather, the hot weather woman. drawing all the ratings.
Let's do it. That's in the morning. That's why you got to watch Desperita America or whatever it is, or whatever Hoy or whatever the hell the name of the shows are. I think it's like novellas, and it's
the guy in the bee suit.
No, I think he's Chespirito. I think he's R.I.P. I think he's long gone now. They've moved on from that. I think they were doing, it wasn't El Chapo. They had a huge El Chapo thing that was a big deal or something like that, huge ratings, but I don't know. The one thing I know is that no matter what NXT draws, even if it starts to drop from where it is, and it is below where it was on USA when it comes to the demo, but that's just because older people watch network TV, especially people, on CW. It's just naturally going to be that way, but they are like over the moon about NXT ratings and NASCAR ratings and most of the football that they had. So their formula of what they wanted to do and what they wanted to build around, again, it's been a long time now. There's nothing that can be done about it, but Tony Khan's loyalty to WBD as opposed to trying to put that show on the CW, I think was a big mistake, because for what CW is doing, ESPN, I think, is handling the production when it comes to a lot of the football and basketball that's shown, but they've done a lot of investing into pushing NASCAR, and they've obviously tied themselves in big time to WWE and tied the two things together. So I think they actually missed out on a really big opportunity.
Yeah, and how great, does it sound to the consumer when there's all these options out there that are pushing you to pay more and more and more each month, and then you have an option like the CW where now you can watch wrestling, and lo and behold, it's free. And you know what? I'm not somebody that can catch it live all the time, but if you wait a day, I believe, you can watch it the next day as well on their app. So I think that's a huge help. I'm a fan of it being on network TV. I think it's a great, even if they don't get the same numbers as you mentioned that they did on USA, you could look at it as kind of like a loss leader, and I think it's in a better place now than it was before.
Yeah, and look, ROH is going to be on Honor Club tonight with a new episode, and, that show is, unfortunately for it and for fans of it, just kind of floating out there in the ether with so much other stuff going on, not the least of which is a WWE pumped-up version of TNA, which, again, that's on Access and TNA Plus, so in some ways it's just as invisible to a lot of people as Honor Club, but there is more that's being kind of cranked into it and trying to push more interest into it because of WWE, and we'll get to that in a minute, but 4-hour blocks from AEW are becoming a thing now. They're going to start early. Yeah, what's up?
Sorry, because I don't know if we'll get to it again, but I believe they also said that they're going to be putting Dean, Tilda Bang 2 and 3 on the Honor Club as well.
Nothing wrong with that. And if there's going to be a reason to buy that for a month, and I'm not, again, throwing shade at ROH there, but yeah, why would you not want to pay for Filthy Tom Lawler? And it's just, to me, a nice gesture, as I talked about on yesterday's show. Nobody has got a bad word to say about Dean. He created a lot of wrestling fans. Tom, I know I was not a DVD VR guy. I was just not a message board guy. I came up in a different era. I used the internet differently than most people, which was not at all really, before I got into doing this sort of stuff. So, that was really beyond me, and it just didn't interest me. But a lot of people really were big and living in those things. I know you were a fan at that time.
Wait, what? You weren't on message boards?
Not really, no. I wasn't. I would sign,
were you writing for Pressu Power Hour?
Yeah, but I didn't do any. And PPA, they had a very rudimentary board. I was writing for the Pro Wrestling Torch back then. They had a pretty rudimentary message board, but it's not like I lived my life in them. And it's not. And those boards were not anywhere near what like DVD VR was, that had all of these compilations that people would make and all this heavy debate, and some good, some bad. That's the one thing about Dave. The influence of newsletters came out through message boards, and you see a lot of that for good and for bad in podcasts and media and everything that we're seeing right now when it comes to wrestling.
It's wild. It's the same thing, but like mixed martial arts would probably be dead if it weren't for message boards. in the late 90s and early 2000s. That is honestly what kept the fandom alive for mixed martial arts in the United States when the UFC was off pay-per-view, when they were still really the only show in town and the sport was severely underground. I mentioned that because it was the MMA Underground Forum, which was the biggest of them, and that had all the latest news, all the rumors, play-by-play, anything that you wanted to find out about mixed martial arts, you had to find out on message boards. And I remember being on the Death Valley driver video review message board. I wasn't, I'm not like a Tony Khan level poster on there, but I would go on there.
God.
And there's so much you could learn about wrestling from reading the message boards, but also just a lot of funny stuff on there.
And much like the roast, some of that funny stuff was actually funny, and some of it was just snarky and mean. Damn kids. But, Dean, nobody says anything negative as I try to transition that. Nobody says anything negative about Dean. Again, his influence is really important, and you being on those shows, since you were announced for that, we haven't had you on since then. Is this so you're going to be on both of the shows coming up here, or just how is this working?
Well, I don't know. I saw my name announced for D&2 on some press release, so I figure I'm on it since I was on the first one. I think I got grandfathered in. So, hey, we'll find out Memorial Day weekend in Arizona. It's just up the road. So I'll tell you more when I know more. But
I was going to say, this is a weird reverse Dennis Stamp thing where it's like, I'm booked. You just show up and it's like, I can't believe it, I'm booked.
Well, who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop me, Mike? Because also Saturday, if I get my plug in right now, Saturday at AEW Wrestling in Cleveland, yours truly is going to be fighting Haku.
What?
You heard me. Filthy Tom Lawler taking on Haku this Saturday night. AEW Wrestling.
What did you or do you have a terminal illness? Do you want to commit suicide?
Hey, I'm trying to get in the bloodline. I figured this is my best shot.
You will be in a bloodline if you go out of sorts with him. That's for sure. And by the way, so it's Haku. It's not Mang. Can he turn into Mang at any point during the match? Can he turn into Prince Tonga at some point? King Haku?
He could do whatever he wants. He could go back to the sumo world and throw on his whatever it is.
There's a guy out there, Crispy Lettuce, who's got he's got a Patreon, got a YouTube site as well. And the only reason I bring this up is he has posted up a lot of World Wrestling Council out of Puerto Rico from the early 80s. And it's something to see Mang with the perfect afro, the most perfect natural you've ever seen in your life, perfectly round, out there throwing the karate kicks and doing his whole thing. I mean,
that's what he looked like when he came back to WWE in the late 2000s. Remember he had the big afro? He looked sick. I don't know if he's going to show up with the big afro on Saturday, but maybe he's been to Turkey.
And absolutely. But by the way, when you are in there and you lock up with him, can you do me a big favor and can you ask him what's up with Hikuleo in WWE? Is he still alive or what?
Yeah, I'll do that right after I bite his nose.
It doesn't matter. Wrestling Observer Live. back on the show. Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawler here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. As I was saying before we got off on the tangent there in that last segment, 4-hour blocks of AEW starting earlier than June. On Wednesday's Dynamite, that would have been last night's Dynamite, Excalibur revealed that on Wednesday, May 14th, they will have a 4-hour live edition of Beach Break encompassing both Dynamite and Collision. Tom, do you want to guess where that show is emanating from?
Michigan.
Very close. How about a place where there's technically a beach, a very small line of a beach on Lake Michigan? Chicago, Illinois. Why? I don't know why. And I remember I was born in Chicago. I moved when I was 5, so there's like very few things. I remember the Arlington Heights racetrack, McDonald's University. When you used to drive to O'Hare Airport, there was a McDonald's University where they, I guess, train their managers or whatever it is. But like when I flew out there for his wedding, and I was heavily sedated still from the flight because I need to be heavily sedated to be on flights. We were driving around, and he took me. He's like, "Let's go to the beach." And
who's he?
Keith Lipinski. I'm sorry, Dr. Keith. And I went out there for his wedding in 2005, I believe it was, whenever it was. And we're driving around, and he drives up by the beach in Chicago, which was just like, damn, and somebody who lives at the beach, you sometimes take it for granted until you go back to the Midwest where there is no beach, there is no seafood, there are no, incredibly tan women in skimpy bikinis walking around, or at least as many as we get down here. But anyway, Beach Break is going to be in Chicago. So there you go. That's the third 4-hour live special announced by AEW this month. On June 4th, we are going to have a 4-hour Fighter Fest from Denver. And on June 11th, a 4-hour summer blockbuster takes place in Portland, Oregon. So
we
there you go.
This is Beach Break from Chicago.
We
had Spring Breakthrough from Boston, I believe. Hey, maybe we can get Independence Day on July 4th from, I don't know, Bolivia,
Toronto.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. But Master P, I do know this, was on last night's AEW show. They sent out a press release about it, and he's about
it.
And Rowdy. That's he is. I'm assuming, because he didn't do it last night, he is going to be. He was on the tapings for Collision, which I did not look at the spoilers for that, but I know they advertised him for that. They have a show. When I say they, I mean Master P's promotion, House of Glory, has got a show coming up this weekend, so I wonder if they're going to hype that up. It's called Isolation. Takes place at the NYC Arena in Manhattan on Friday. It's going to stream on Triller TV. Mike Santana defending the House of Glory heavyweight title against Konosuke Takeshita. So maybe, I guess we're going to get some Don Callis interaction. I would love to see Master P beat up Don Callis. That would actually make me very happy. Trevor Lee against Charles Mason. I actually like that. Trevor Lee has stayed on the independent scene ever since departing NXT and WWE, and he doesn't wrestle much, but he does wrestle some interesting matches, and I do like Charles Mason, so that's what they got coming up this weekend. Dynamite was last night from New Orleans. I can't even remember if it was the Smoothie King Center, UNO Arena. I can't even remember where it was. Do you remember, Tom? Lakefront Arena?
No.
The old
Abita Turbo Dog Arena.
I like Abita Turbo Dog. And by the way, Abita, the brewing company, some of the best root beer I ever had was from Abita. Stuff is good.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, it's like Cafe Du Monde coffee. Anyway, Master P opened up the show last night. Out came the Ops. They were all celebrating the new AEW Trios champions. When out came the Death Riders, their music hit. They jumped the baby faces, start beating them down. Mox then went face-to-face with Master P, who people forget tried out for the NBA and played in the G League at least, or something like that. But big dude. That distraction allowed Samoa Joe to sneak up behind Moxley, choked him out again. The best part of this whole thing is as Joe had him locked up, P just around, threw a punch to his gut, just jumping out. Perfect. I thought played it perfectly. The Bucks and Okada ended up coming out. They hit Samoa Joe with a chair. Moxley was going to go after them. Marina got him away. Swerve's music hit. He came out of the crowd, beat down everybody. Young Bucks and Okada bailed from the ring. Out comes Kenny Omega with a chair from the entrance ramp. So the Bucks and Okada had to escape through the crowd. Joe then did a promo challenging Moxley for the AEW title and says he's going to take back what is rightfully his. They did focus on Swerve and Omega's faces after he said that line. So as Bryan said, we're finally getting some segments with some big stars in them. And my first thought was that felt very Stadium Stampede-y. I don't think they're going to be doing that. Blood and Guts or Anarchy in the Arena is probably a better bet coming up. But what did you think about the segment? Where do you think they're going?
Master P, now granted he has experience, but he outshined Travis Scott in this segment. Master P out there trying to make John Moxley say, with those punches to the gut. I'm all for more of Master P. You know what I mean? In doses like this, he didn't overstay his welcome. He's a big guy, so it's credible to a certain extent. And, I mean, hell, if we could get the No Limit Soldiers back in action as a faction, how great would that be, huh?
Where do you come down on Rap Snacks?
Not my favorite, to be fair.
Okay. I think Master P actually owns that, too. Mr. P's done a lot, actually. He's done a ridiculous amount. Ricochet and Mark Briscoe, we can just gloss over the Christian Nick Wayne thing. There's still got some drama going on there. Christian intimated that he may have had some relations with Mama Wayne to celebrate Nick's victory. That moved us into Ricochet and Mark Briscoe. Best match of the night for me, because I love Mark Briscoe and I love watching him wrestle, and they had a really fun, great match which was wild and all over the place, but it was still two guys trying to get pins on each other, especially Mark Briscoe. They did a great job, I thought, with everything. Ricochet tried to cradle using the ropes, but Mark reversed it and pinned him clean. The crowd went absolutely nuts, and it was awesome to actually see that happen. Mark Briscoe getting a victory again. Sometimes you got to have a little steam valve that, you got to have an escape for it and blow off steam. Every once in a while, Mark Briscoe winning would be a great thing. Love to see him in a title picture. Probably won't happen, but again, you give him some credibility, you give him some shots to win. Look, he could lose all the time. I think people would still love him and want to see him, but you give him a couple victories once in a while, especially over a guy like Ricochet. I thought everything worked itself out perfectly. What'd you think?
This match ruled. The AEW sickos out there had a lot to goon over with this card. I mean, I thought everything delivered, and really I have a hard time saying what was the most enjoyable thing on the show, because this match was fantastic. You get a great feel-good ending anytime Mark Briscoe wins. It just makes you feel good inside. This guy is so awesome, so good at his job, so underrated. That match is fantastic. I'm sure you're going to get to the tag match. That was off the charts great. And the follow-up tag match and the main event. Everything on the show I thought delivered. Great edition of Dynamite. Shout
out to the Laurel Junction Flea Market, which got called out last night, and I don't even think the announcers knew it. Tony Schiavone's an announcer. He got called out by FTR, who then called out the Rock and Roll Express to the ring. They've got a new manager, Stokely Hathaway. Long story short, it ended with the Rock and Roll Express getting knocked around and Ricky Morton getting stuff pile driven, and that was that. Unfortunately, they didn't follow up with anything. It was one of those things, but FTR with Stokely Hathaway, look, I think it's a fine twist. They needed to do something with FTR that's believable. Them just being whiny kind of D-bags with Stokely Hathaway is, heating things up for him. I like it.
Yeah, and, they didn't say Stokely was their manager. They said Stokely's their agent. Right? Yes. So basically, it sets up the dynamic of he is doing their bidding. You know what I mean? He's not the one pulling the strings over FTR. they are the ones with the power and he is working for them, which I thought is a great little twist. And it honestly adds a lot to that heel act, I think. Didn't see it coming.
No, that absolutely not. You did not see that one coming at all. Tag teams, I love the Briscoes. I love the Midnight Express. A lot of tag teams that I've loved. For a lot of people, the Young Bucks are their favorite tag team of all time, and they think they're the greatest tag team in the world like Bryan Alvarez does. And boy, was he over the moon about this match. If you're a Young Bucks fan, this was everything you could have wanted and then some. This could have been in PWG. Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, the perfect opponents for them to come back and have a match with their first since October. I mean, there's no point in going through the moves or any of that sort of stuff, but, I mean, just a hell of a return for them for sure.
Yeah, the Young Bucks, everybody knows how creative they are. I could tell you, I haven't been in there with Kevin Knight a bunch, but I have been in there with Speedball quite a few times. And that guy is one of the most creative, dynamic professional wrestlers on the planet. And this is a match, like, they did a lot in this match, and sometimes you do too much and it kind of misses the mark and hits its peak early. But that never happened with this match. This match I thought was fantastic from beginning to end. And like I said, I don't know if I enjoyed this match or the Briscoe Ricochet match more.
I love the Hurt Syndicate and MJF and how they've been playing everything up, and Bobby Lashley, being a half bully, half annoyed when it comes to MJF, taking his car last night after he got 2 thumbs up from MVP and Shelton Benjamin. That ended up leading into a confrontation a little bit later on between MJF and Hangman. That was a little piece of that they dropped in there that I liked as well, too, with them fighting over the Owen, but best thing they got going on right now, I think, are those interactions with the Hurt Business and MJF. At least the most entertaining thing on the show to me.
It was good stuff.
Will Ospreay and Brody King, Takeshita and Josh Alexander. Again, somewhat like the first segment, that there was a big beatdown at the end with Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero coming to beat down Hangman Page. But the Don Callis war against Will Ospreay continues. Have you tired of this at all? Are you fine with the interactions that seem to take place with Don Callis being kind of now got a whole, Legion of Doom here to kind of go after Will Ospreay?
Yeah, I think the addition of like 4 or 5 guys all at once kind of freshens it up a little bit. And, having kind of a revolving door of guys with Will Ospreay to fight them off is good. Brody King here. Brody King is
so
great.
Good. Yeah.
He is awesome. Fantastic. So it was kind of cool to see him teaming up with Ospreay, kind of an odd duo, but the more Brody King on television, the better. And yeah, I think you could keep Ospreay fighting against the Don Callis family for at least a few more months until you get him up there in the world title picture, because it seems like he's kind of shut out of that for right now.
I cannot wait until Buddy Matthews gets back, because Buddy and Brody as a team, I know, look, as a singles, Buddy could be outstanding. You push Brody, right, he could be, a beast too, holding the title, but them together as a team. I know we saw it once with the Hurt Business, but you do a program with them, I think it would be great. Chris Statlander, Jamie Hayter. Hayter gets the victory, goes on to face Mercedes Moné in the finals of the Owen Hart's Women's Cup Tournament. Get Tom's thoughts on that when we get back from break. Wrestling Observer Live. On the show, Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you, who is just feeling this Ice Train music right now.
The fire and ice of the Empire.
Am I Scott Norton then? That means you're Ice Train? You're M.I. Smooth?
I'd love to see you in one of those Kangol hats with the black glasses on like Scott Norton.
I got a Kangol. And anyway, that's taking time away from the fact that John LaRocca and Garrett Gonzalez are going to have a live edition for free up tonight on F4W's YouTube channel, 9:30 p.m. Pacific time, 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, a live fight game podcast. It's also going to be available on Apple and Spotify probably sometime after that. It takes a while to put things up on Apple. I don't know why. Spotify is really easy that way. But if you haven't ever heard the show before, you're not a subscriber to the site, you want to check it out. Again, 9:30 tonight Pacific time. John LaRocca, Garrett Gonzalez, Fight Game Podcast live. So check that out. Tom, I got to ask you, have you ever shared a card with Queen Aminata before?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is she, like, really that pretty? Because she, like, is... there's a lot of pretty people in wrestling, obviously, and more better-looking people than ever, more fit people than ever in this business. Fantastic. But I'm watching the show last night, interacting with Tony Storm, and it's like, she's just really pretty.
Let's take it home.
Well, I'm going to go get something to drink because I'm obviously thirsty. And I'd like to thank Filthy Tom Lawler for once again stepping in here for Bryan Alvarez, who will be back with you tomorrow for Fun Friday. I probably won't be, but Bryan will be here. All your calls and more. I want to thank producer John. I want to thank producer Dom, especially for the music breaks today, and for all of you out there for watching and listening. We shall talk to you again after a while.